Benjamin from Optimal Canine. Today we're going to talk about owning multiple dogs, so multi-dog households, and just go over kind of what you need to pay attention to, how you need to be in order to own multiple dogs. So a lot of people nowadays are going to shelters and they're picking up all these dogs and they're just saying, oh, I want this dog, I want this dog. I'll just bring them all together and we'll be one big happy family, which, like, when you think about it, maybe it sounds like an okay idea. But if you really dive in, um, different dogs have different personalities. So you have to be a certain type of leader in order to be able to own multiple dogs, different genetics, different personalities. So I'm going to give you a little example here. I have 3 German Shepherd type breeds. Venom over there is a Dutch Shepherd. He's eating grass, I think. Valen is a Malinois mixed with a German Shepherd. I think it's 75 Mal, 25% German Shepherd. And then Viper is the only female, and she is a 50-50. So 50% Mal, 50% Shepherd. So I have dogs that all have similar genetics, similar mindsets. Shepherds are all kind of wary of strangers. They all like to play with the ball. They all like to, play tug. So they can complement each other in some ways just because they all kind of think alike. So if a stranger comes up to the door, all the dogs are like, who's that stranger coming up to the door? Versus if you had some different dogs with different personalities, maybe you have a golden retriever and then you have a German Shepherd. The golden retriever will probably be like, who's that person coming up to the door? Let's play. Versus the German Shepherd might be like, well, I don't want this person coming up to the door. And that can create kind of a conflict in personalities there. The most important thing about dealing with having multiple dogs is you being clear, fair, and consistent with all the dogs. You being the leader, you being the provider of resources, not letting the dogs constantly correct each other, constantly bully each other, because then you're going to have some issues. Like right here. Here's an example. You see how Valen's all up in her cooter? That kind of stuff. Hey, that kind of stuff, if I don't say anything, she's going to have to say something. And there's certain situations with dogs where if you have a dog that's maybe pretty fair or pretty balanced, you notice the dog does a pretty good job of expressing how she feels without injuring other dogs or other animals, then you may have a dog who can provide some pushback, some corrections. But in general, it's best for you as the handler to be the one who's like, I can tell that Valen is being annoying. He's all up in her space, and she's eventually going to get bothered by that. So if I step in and I stop it and provide some direction there, that way she trusts me to make decisions and help her out. And also Valen's held accountable, and he's not allowed to be a pushy, annoying dog. So that's the biggest reason that there's constantly fights with dogs that are 3 household, four dogs in the household, 5 dogs in the household, is because people are letting the dogs just be pushy, jump on each other, annoy each other, and not doing anything about it. The dogs will eventually hurt each other for the most part. You get some dogs who just only correct, but if you have a dog that's super, super annoying or super, super pushy, and the other dogs are constantly correcting it, and the dog just keeps doing it, then eventually it becomes one of those things where you're going to have some dog fights in your house. And that's no fun. If you can manage to be a good leader and make sure, hey, no, Viper, no. If you can be a good leader, then you can make sure that those things are a lot less likely to happen. Obviously, there's going to be disagreements. You got 3 dogs, but if you're a good leader, you're consistent, you can make sure pushy behavior gets corrected and stuff gets, stopped before it gets started. So moving on into the corrective portion of things. When we're talking about providing corrections for the dogs, I like to, look at a couple of different options. If my dogs have done a lot of training with the e-collar, then I'm okay with using the e-collar for providing consequences. Vipers, or that's Gamora barking. So the e-collar can be used to provide consequences. We can also use spatial pressure to provide consequences. So right now, Venom is looking at her because he's trying to kind of initiate possibly some play there. He's kind of stalking her a little bit, waiting for her to, make some eye contact. So if I come over to him, and I'm not saying he's doing anything necessarily wrong, but if I come over and I kind of get in his space, then it's going to make it a little bit more difficult for him to continue doing what he's trying to do. Because now he's like, well, why is he following me? See how he's kind of breaking away? So that's one thing there. Of course, I can be verbal too. I can say, and start moving into his space if I really want him to stop. But that's something that he likes to do, and he's not really being mean or doing anything wrong when he does that. Another thing you can look at is physical corrections. So if there's something like a fight that's breaking out, or someone who's being nippy or being aggressive towards another dog, I have no problem putting this paddle on their butt. No issue with it at all. So let's say one of my males goes over to the other male and is nipping at him or biting at him, or they get into a little scuffle. I'm gonna come over there and I'm gonna say no, and both dogs will get corrected over their butt with this paddle. The people who are not okay with correcting the dogs are the people who just euthanize the dogs or send them back to the shelter. That's what they do. They say, oh, these dogs can't get along. I'm just going to either kill the dog, get it euthanized, give them the blue juice, or I'm going to send it back to the shelter. And guess what? When they go back to the shelter, they get killed too. You know why? Because the shelters are full. So your dog's still getting killed if you send it to the shelter. So in order to own multiple dogs, at some point, you're probably going to have to distribute a correction in order for the dogs to all get along. And if you're not okay with doing that, then you shouldn't get multiple dogs. You just get one, or maybe one male and one female. And it all kind of depends. But you shouldn't be looking at getting 4 or 5 dogs if you're not comfortable with putting something on their butt when they're doing things that they shouldn't be doing. So, little rundown, the rules for my situation, my dogs, is I really don't allow a whole bunch of play. I don't allow a whole bunch of tackling, wrestling, because it's too high arousal. They're too competitive. It can turn into a scuffle. It can turn into a fight. So you notice my dogs are all kind of separate. Valen's over here. Venom's over there. Viper's over there. So they're not constantly up each other's butt. And the more I enforce that, the more it seems like they actually appreciate it and enjoy it, because it is competitive and it is kind of stressful to constantly come into the backyard and think, oh, I have to compete with this other dog that's here, versus me just completely saying, hey, y'all are not allowed to interact with each other that way. Y'all can interact with me. We can train separately. Maybe the dogs train with me separately. Maybe the dogs train with me separately, but I don't allow my dogs to just be constantly chewing, wrestling, pushing on each other. So that's a big thing. Another thing is when you're communicating with them, making sure you're clear about who you're talking to. So if you're just constantly saying no, 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 and not letting the dogs know kind of who you're talking to. Hey. Valen, no. Good. So if you're not letting them know kind of who you're talking to, then that can be confusing. I think Valen's going to get in trouble here in a second. So that's something that I would get on to a dog about. I told him no, and he keeps nibbling at my sleeve. But he also went over to Viper and was kind of being annoying. No. So he went over to Viper and was being annoying, coming over to me and being annoying. He's the youngest. So the youngest are always the most annoying. So not letting him get away with that. Viper doesn't look like she wants to play. Viper's all the way over there. She don't want to play with him. I told him to stop. He kept on nibbling on me. So we're not playing right now. So he needs to cut it out. So he got a correction on his e-collar. So setting boundaries, advocating for all the dogs so that we can all live in harmony and have nice times together versus constantly, getting into disagreements. No. All right. We'll end it on that.